to 1 cup of Japan. To adjust this so that my microphone stand is not being transmitted, shown. Yeah, good morning, guys. It is December 31st, just about 9:30 a.m. here in Japan. I hope you're all doing well. I had planned to go out and do like a normal live 1 cup of that kind of thing, but unfortunately because of the weather, it's just a little bit difficult today. And so instead we're just gonna do like one of these sit in the room and chat kind of things, and it's been a while, so I suppose that's okay. I am now in my new house, which is really, really exciting. Emily, hello, thank you. Yeah, it's really exciting. I can show you a little bit, I suppose, with my makeshift tripod here. There's really nothing in this room. This is my office. There's some boxes over there which are just full of like, basically collectibles. And then I can't really show you the desk behind us here without kind of taking off my makeshift tripod. But anyway, we're in the new house. As I said, this is the office. There's nothing, there's no desks, there's no bookshelves, there's no anything, because I'm sort of I'm just moving very, very surely but slowly from my apartment in Sabai City to here in Takifu. And of course I'm here now for the new year to be with my wife's family, and that kind of thing. So in lieu of instead of walking and talking and all that kind of thing, I thought we could have a little bit more of a structured live stream than normal, I suppose, seeing as well, I have the computer in front of me so I can actually see your comments as they come in this time. And yeah, I thought we'd talk a little bit about the news. We can talk about the coming year, which hopefully will be a good one. And then yeah, I guess we'll go from there. So I guess we can start out with something that we've talked about a lot before, and is going to kind of continue to be an issue, I think, here in the future, which is this kind of the Go To Travel campaign, right? And directly connected to that, of course, is the ongoing COVID-19 situation. Japan has seen kind of a resurgence here over the last month or so in particular. It's worth saying that it's not as though suddenly Japan's situation has transformed into something like in the States, right, where it's just rampant and it's like right here it's still a rarity, a relative rarity if somebody gets sick with this thing, whereas right, directly connected to me one way or the another, for example, right, like I know 4 people in the States who have COVID, including family, which is a new situation. I just found out yesterday my grandfather has COVID. Luckily he's asymptomatic, which is a really good thing, but hopefully it doesn't spread out any further from there, right? But we don't need to dwell on that, but all this to say that while the situation is getting worse here in Japan, it's not like it is in other places, which, of course, just because something is worse someplace else doesn't mean that it's not bad here, right? Now, just to give you guys some idea, and by the way, all of the kind of news kind of stuff we're going to talk about today, there are links to mostly English sources down in the show notes and the description below this video, so if you want to kind of read for yourself and check up on it, please feel free to do so. I encourage you to do so, in fact. Hello, Salty P. I'm sorry, I just saw your piece at this moment. So I suppose to talk a little bit about details. Very recently, Japan had like 944 cases in Tokyo in a single day. As of last night, I think they had 949, which is the new single day record. And you know, I think it's something that we all should have expected, because first of all, I think as in many places people had fatigue, right, for having to stay away from people and not being able to do things and all that kind of thing. And then of course just the nature of the way diseases spread, right, when it gets cold, and that kind of the way sicknesses spread. And then it's also the fact now that we're having like these different holidays, right, like we have Christmas, and I imagine especially after this New Year thing that we're just gonna have a really big explosion. And it doesn't really bear talking about too much, because anything I could say would just be the same thing you could say for any place else, right? Like, people need to do better with staying away from each other. They need to continue to be patient and all that kind of thing. And of course, it's really, really easy for me to say that because I live in, my apartment is in a city of 80,000 people. This city, I think, is like 45 or 50,000, something like that, right? So we do not have the same restrictions here that places like the capital have. But what does bear speaking about a little bit is something we've talked about sort of in focus in one of the, I guess it would have been a one Cuppa, like maybe in October or something like that, where we talked specifically about the Go To Travel and the Go To Eat campaigns. For those of you who don't know, a quick rundown of what those programs are. Go To Eat is a government program which will pay for like 30% or 35% of your bill if you go to like participating ryokan or hotel or hotels, or that kind of thing, right? They'll cover 35% of the cost to encourage travel, to help boost up the economy and help support those businesses during this time when nobody wants to do any traveling. Likewise, the Go To Eat campaign is it's a similar program, but for example, if you buy Go To Eat works using vouchers. So if you buy like ichiman and about $100 worth of these vouchers, then their actual value is something like $125. 1,250円くらいかな. And so by doing so, the idea is that people will then go and eat more, and then they can support restaurants who are also suffering during this time. I have made very clear that I think the Go To Travel campaign is really stupid. I think it's really poorly thought out, and I think it's just another example of people wanting to be seen to do something without actually thinking about whether that thing is intelligent or not. And the reason why we're talking about this now is because, of course, maybe a week or two ago they had said, okay, well, we're gonna put this thing on hold as cases, particularly in Tokyo, and the hubs down in Osaka area started to see these explosions in people, and that was the smart thing to do, right? Like, they shouldn't have done it to begin with, but if they're gonna do a stupid program, at least know enough to put it on hold when shit starts to hit the fan, right? And we could talk about whether or not Go To Travel is directly responsible for those increasing cases. I imagine that at least is a contributing factor. But the thing that strikes me as really stupid, right, is I'll pop this link now into the chat, guys, if you want to see. Is of course now people are having some complaints about the Go To Travel campaign stopping, right? Because there are people who are hurting seriously, right? Like places that have relied on tourist money for decades or whatever, and they want the government to continue. And so now the government, feeling pressure from that, right, is sort of mulling over, okay, what's the best thing to do here? Do we keep the campaign on hold? Do we cancel it entirely? And I think what is most representative of kind of the way of thinking in this government, and it's not just here, of course, I don't mean to make it sound that way, but was that as these sort of complaints start to come out, right, and these politicians start to feel a little bit of pressure, right, they start to cave a little bit, right? The smart thing, of course, is to cancel Go To. But the other day when like the record 944 cases were announced in Tokyo, right? They on the same day, like one of the ministers, I think it was a minister of finance or a minister of travel or something like that, had basically said, okay, well, maybe I think we should think about starting the Go To Travel campaign almost immediately in the new year, in January, from like January 10th or something like that. And it's just, it speaks so much to this want to please versus actual, right, wanting to please in the short term versus actually wanting to do something that will ultimately please people, but also actually have a positive net effect if people can take a little bit more of a long view, right? I don't know that that will happen. Probably it won't happen because I think probably the general public realizes now that it's kind of a bad idea. And so hopefully what will happen, hopefully, right? Of course, I have no connection to the government whatsoever. I don't know anything about any of that, but hopefully what will happen is that they will stop this kind of campaign, which is in some sense just some kind of lip service, right? Or it's just some kind of show, political show, and they will start direct support systems for these companies that are more sensible, right? And offer kind of a more long-term solution, and a solution that doesn't also simultaneously increase the risk of spreading corona more around the country, right? So it's not really worth talking too much more about it than that, but I don't know how close you guys have been following the go-to travel thing or corona news generally in Japan. I imagine that probably you have your hands full just following that kind of news in your home country. I know that like when I follow the American situation quite closely because like a very large percentage of people still working in my family, that's a weird way to put it, are healthcare workers, right? Doctors, nurse practitioners, nurses, aides, that kind of thing. So I follow it really, really closely, but I feel the fatigue, right? Going from like, okay, well, I'm already so tired out from just thinking about Japan's situation, right? And then going to look at another country is just tiresome to say the least. So, I suppose though that that's a good place to kind of transition, because directly related to that, of course, quite recently, right, there has been the new, let's see. We've got some comments coming in, so before we move on, let's address these. Yeah, so Emily in the comments here, Wikipedia is talking about how encouraging people to travel is it's a very stupid idea. And yeah, hoping that people have enough common sense not to take part in these programs. Right, and also at the same time she's saying, right, that it's dangerous to assume that most people have common sense. Yeah, I can't agree with that more. I think if I would add something in addendum, it would be that I think most people have common sense, but it's also like the government, by having these programs, is effectively telling you it's okay, right? And particularly in a society that I want to be careful about not to overgeneralize, but particularly in a society that tends to more immediately trust what is being said by the government. At least in my personal experience, right? When the government has this kind of program, it's easy for them to be like, okay, well, I guess it must be fine, right? Like we'll be okay, that kind of thing. If the government says it's fine, like maybe it's fine, right? So I think people have common sense, but it's also like there's this naivety, like that if there's naivete, where like if the government says it's okay, then it must be, right? So yeah, unfortunately, it tends to cancel out a little bit of the common sense, right? So, are the people over there that don't believe COVID exists? Yeah, for sure, for sure. Sarah, hello. Definitely. I don't think it gets the same kind of traction, and possibly it's just because I kind of stay out of those circles, both in real life and on the internet. But you see it sometimes, right, pop up on Twitter, not too much on the news, but you see it pop up where people, don't believe in masks and think it's some kind of new world order conspiracy to control the population. Or, for example, something you saw pop up particularly early during the pandemic was people talking about, let's take a step back, I suppose. Of course, Japan has an overwhelmingly and increasingly aged population, right? And so the idea is that if you sort of that now, because of how much of the percentage of the population is aged, that, for example, people my age, right, this is a discussion we have in the States too, right, but people my age are not going to have the same social benefits because things like Social Security, right? The pension system here, the national pension system, will not survive to support, for example, me when I'm old, despite paying into it every month. And so there has been that kind of thing where people think like it's some kind of engineered disease to wipe out like the big chunk of the aged population so that the pension system can better survive. Yeah, so there's crazies. There's crazies for sure, you know, and related to that, you know, there were people here who actively tried to spread COVID to other people by not wearing masks on train, and it was something like let's spread COVID party or something like that. It was a while ago. It was over the summer, but all of that to say in a very long-winded way that yes, there are crazy people here as everywhere, unfortunately. So related to that, I know at least one of you watching is directly affected by this next story I'm going to talk about, or maybe I should say. This is news from the Japan Times, titled "Japan to halt new entry of foreign nationals over new virus strain." Now this particular story is getting a lot of traction in the immigrant community here, because, again, to touch on stuff we've talked about before, during the initial scare, and when I say initial, first 5 or 6 months following Corona, like people could not get back in the country if they left, right? And I'm not talking about tourists, I'm talking about people who have lived here for years, have families here, have jobs here, apartments, pay taxes, pension, right? All that kind of thing here. So they've made significant investments into a future here. They support the economy, they support this pension system we talked about before, and yet they weren't allowed to re-enter the country despite their status. Now, one of the reasons why this new story is getting such attention is because despite the fact that, according to the story, that foreign residents will be treated in the same way as Japanese citizens as far as the procedures for getting back in the country, right? We'll be allowed to come back in, we just have to have a PCR test within 72 hours of coming back in the country. Despite the fact that the government is saying that foreign residents, right, people like me who have that status, who have work clearance, have investments, all that kind of thing, will be treated the same way, a lot of times, of course, what's said is not the actual reality, right? I do want to make a distinction, of course. I think one of the things you see a lot, particularly on Twitter, is people complaining about not being able to come to the country because they can't go to fucking Akihabara now, right? Like they had plans to come like in March or something like that, now they can't go. And of course it sucks, right? Like I understand wanting to travel and you know, take a vacation, and maybe you've really wanted to go to Japan for a long time, and I get that. But it's so infuriating to see people who are coming over here for a week-long vacation be like, oh well, fuck, now my life is over, right? Like, no, it's not. It's not, right? And it's completely sensible, I think, for any government, including the Japanese government, to say we need to keep people out for a little bit, particularly from places like the States who have not shown that they can kind of keep their house in order, right? And I think it's troubling that people in that particular situation make no distinction between themselves, who are just taking a week-long vacation for fun, and people who have lives here. I think that's really, really troubling. Like, why should you be allowed in just because you have a different visa and that kind of thing? And it's like, well, fucking think about it, you know? So I know, as I said, there are people who are watching this now who have plans to come over here to start a life here, or at least I don't know how long, but at least to come over here and work. And hopefully this does not affect those plans, because again, there should be a distinction between people who are coming over here to contribute something more than a week worth of tourist dollars to people who are actually trying to support the country in the long term, I think. You know, and of course all of that kind of thing needs to be backed by some sort of evidence. It can't just be like, well, some kind of blanket ban and that kind of thing. There needs to be some kind of sense to it, right? And I think, for example, I keep going back to the American example because, well, American, so there is a preponderance of evidence, right, that shows that it would make sense, for example, for Japan to at least temporarily stop an influx of people from the States, or from the UK, that kind of thing, right? But it, my hope is that the government will make good on its words, and it will treat foreign nationals in the same way, not foreign nationals, excuse me, foreign residents in the same way as it treats citizens as far as the coming back into the country and that kind of thing. Assuming that they follow the rules and get their PCR tests and everything else like that, and they do what they're supposed to do, I'm hoping we're not going to see the horror stories where, parents are separated from children, and you've got people locked out of the country who can't come back in to do their job, and yet they're still expected to pay the rent here and that kind of thing. So it's, it's just really, really troubling. So hopefully that's just not the case. I'm really realizing now that we're 20 minutes or so into this, that all of the news I've chosen for today, while important, is all kind of heavy. Maybe the last story isn't so much so, but none of it is all that fun. So I apologize for that. Before we move on though to the last-ish story, I suppose, let's see if there's any comments or questions or anything we can get to. I guess going off the last story, like what do you think? Does it, if you had plans to come over here in the spring, for example, or whether for work or for play, like what do you think? Like, are you pissed? Like, does it seem unfair to you that suddenly you have to put off your travel plans? Does it make sense to you? If, for example, you would plan to come over here to start working, like, what are your feelings now? Are you concerned that, or have you had any news from for example, your future employer that says that maybe you aren't going to be able to come over like you thought you were? Let's try and get some comments, I suppose. Sort of not used to doing this live stream thing yet, so like, I don't know how much I'm supposed to talk after I ask for questions and comments, to avoid like dead space, to avoid dead air. But this is interesting, eh? This desk, like, this is not my permanent desk. I'm borrowing one from my wife, and it's like, anyway, it's not my favorite. But what I'm trying to say is just like two-tiered. It's almost spoken half Japanese there. It's two-tiered, and so that's what's being shown here. I apologize. As always, there are things I should have thought better through. So I'm not concerned, but I understand their situation. Yeah. I hopefully that'll be more the the line that people take, Andrew, is something more sensible like that. Is just trying to understand. And I mean, of course, I do not want to make it sound at all as though I'm defending any sort of policy that would keep like residents out and that kind of thing. And I think too, there is a danger with these kind of policies of just barring people because you think, or how can I say, using COVID as an excuse to keep people out that you don't want coming in the country, right? But so long as it's not that, I think I'm kind of in support of this. So. Indeed. Anyway, as with the other stories, you can check this out in the description below the video. This is a Japan Times story from the 27th of December, so it's fresh-ish. And yeah, my friend and her mother were going for their birthday in November. Yeah, there's a lot of that kind of story, right, where people had plans to come over. I think, right, Andrew, you're not the only one. I think maybe Wikipedia too, you had plans to come over and you couldn't because of the situation. So likewise here, I'd planned to bring my little brother over here in April or May or something of last year, just before he started his life as an adult, because he just sort of graduated university. And yeah, we wanted him to come over and stay for like a month and just experience life here a little bit. But yeah, unfortunately that didn't work out. And of course we couldn't go home for Christmas for the same reason. So yeah, shitty times. I suppose I have one more story, but I suppose I could make it a little bit more enjoyable by doing a little bit of prerequisite lead into that story. Two questions, I suppose. Let's put these in the comments so that they remain. First question: what's your favorite? Okay, first, I suppose let's do it this way. Have you ever been to a Japanese convenience store? We don't need to make it Japanese. To a convenience store. 2. What's your favorite convenience store? And 3. What item, food, product, etc. do you think of when you hear convenience store? I was frustrated when my trip was canceled, but I have already been to Japan 3 times and Japan isn't going anywhere, so I tried not to cry about it too much. Yeah, that's a healthy approach, eh? That's a healthy approach, I think. Yeah, there's nothing to be done, right? So, Family Mart, yes. It's a Family Mart friend in the comments here. For those of you who, for example, can't see the chat for some reason, the 3 questions I asked to the chat were, hey, have you ever been to a convenience store? Seems maybe like a stupid question, but I know that maybe in the States I've been to a convenience store like twice. There's this, anyway, we don't need to talk about Stafford, New York, but I was going to talk about a convenience store there, but anyway. The first question was, have you ever been to a convenience store? The second one, what's your favorite convenience store? And what item, food, product, etc. do you think of when you hear a convenience store? So far in the comments, yeah, that's right, the Trading Post in Stafford, New York. Does that place still exist? Family Mart, yeah, so we have Family Mart and 7-Eleven as have votes for being the best convenience store. I am a Family Mart person, usually just because they're really, yo! Long time no see, Kazuki, how you doing? How's Canada? So far we have 2 votes for Family Mart being the best convenience store, and 7-Eleven has 1 vote. And as for things that people think about when they think of convenience stores, so far we have a tonkatsu sandwich, which of course is a classic convenience store item, I think. Japan. Yeah, Tammy, that situation is unfortunately really common, eh? Really common. I wonder how many couples like ended up breaking up just because they couldn't possibly get back together because of that situation. As far as the convenience store, yeah, as I said, Family Mart is my favorite. Probably only because within walking distance of my apartment, there's 2 within like 5 minutes. Like if I go to the left, there's 1 within 5 minutes. If I go to the right, there's 1 within 5 minutes. But these days, actually, I'm starting to like Lawson more. There's a lot of and A's happening. Oh, I see. It's not the it's an A kind of thing. The Canadians here are calling me out. I'm sorry, all right? Buffalo's super close to Canada, so give me a break. What am I doing here? Okay. the A thing threw me off. What was I saying? Okay, so yeah, Family Mart. But Lawson these days is becoming more... San Francisco. Okay, that's cool. Both of my brothers are living in San Francisco, so that seems like a pretty... From what I've heard, it seems like a really good place to be. Only 1 Family Mart. Oh, I got you. What was I gonna say? Yeah, so Lawson's become my favorite just because they have a better like line, or an increasingly good line of more natural products at Lawson, like healthier stuff, not a lot of crap added to it, kind of snacks and that kind of thing. 7-Eleven I like because they're trying to reduce the amount of packaging that they're using, like particularly plastics. They're using like biodegradable plastics, that kind of thing now, which is really cool. I don't know why I'm like talking about all the different characteristics of these different chains. They don't need my help, right, promoting them, and Let's be honest, they're not gonna get too much from me. But what was I saying? Yeah, but my favorite convenience store food, I suppose, if right, we have the tonkatsu sandwich mentioned here, is probably like the like nikuman, that kind of thing. Or like recently, there's a curry restaurant chain in Japan called Kokoichiban, and recently at Family Mart they've been selling like Kokoichi curry, cheese curry nikuman, right? The steamed like sweet bread roll kind of things with filling in the inside. Those are super good. Now, the reason I did that lead in, so skillfully I might add, is because of this next story. This is, oh yeah, the sweets at convenience stores are just bueno. This next story that I put in the comments, guys, is in Japanese. But basically, there is a group. I don't know what just happened. I just went into Fargo mode. There is a group at Family Mart. There is a line of products called Okasan Shokudo. And this means like mother's kitchen, right? That kind of thing. Mother's cafeteria. I don't know what you want to say. Anyway. But the idea is that this food is all sort of tastes like mom's home cooking, right? So if you open the story, there's an image of like this product line, and you can see, for example, there's like tonjiru, which is like pork miso soup kind of thing. There's salads. There's like grilled fish. There's white rice. There's like ebi with chili sauce, shrimp with chili sauce, that kind of thing. And right, so this is the line, and the idea is, right, okay, anytime you want to have mom's home cooking, you can go to Family Mart and you can just buy some version of it in a package. Nothing too exciting about that idea, right? It is what it is. So y'all don't understand how bad I want to visit a Japanese convenience store. I do not understand. I went to one about an hour and 45 minutes ago, so I'm sorry, I'm just being a dick for the sake of being a dick. But why this product line is in the news is because there's a group of high school girls. And let's see, in Fukuoka, let's see, 立ち上げたのは京都、群馬、岡山か. So it looks like there is a group of girls. They originally started from Kyoto, Gunma, and Okayama prefectures. And they started a petition basically asking Family Mart to change the name of this line, of this product line. The complete opposite of a 7-Eleven roller dog. I don't know what that is, Snow White. I just don't. I don't get how you hardly ever went convenience stores back home, or Max Milk was the place. Emily, I don't know if your comment is directed towards me, but like, maybe towards Tammy, probably. So let's just continue on with that assumption. The reason that they're asking, so let's go back here. So this group of 3 girls from these 3 different prefectures started an online petition asking Family Mart to change the name of this product line, basically because they find the product line name to be anachronistic and possibly sexist. The idea being that, no, it's towards you said you went to convenience stores once or twice ever. Yeah, like I can, maybe it's just because of where I grew up that we didn't go. Like, I mean, we went to things like highway rest stops and that kind of thing, like when we were driving to Florida or that kind of thing, but we just, I don't know, we just never went. And also there was, I can remember maybe like one convenience store in my hometown, but also it was sort of like attached to a gas station. I guess that's more common in the States, is instead of having like just like a dedicated convenience store, is to have something that's attached to, yeah, Yellow Goose, right? Yellow Goose, where we could go but then there was like there's Pooh's Deli too, right? That I'm remembering now. But anyway, even if I wanted to go to those places, my parents' house is outside of the main town, and before I could drive, I would have had to bicycle, like, actually it wouldn't have been so far, like 10 minutes or something like that. But I guess I just didn't care enough to go. I think we always had like enough snacks, right? Because my dad's a big dude, and so there was always like snacks and shit in the house that they never really warranted a trip to the convenience store. I don't know, it just wasn't something that's part of my culture. All right, Emily, can you quit attacking my culture? My microculture? Anyway, to get back to the story at hand. So the idea is that this line, right, Okasan Shokudo, the name is anachronistic, it's a little bit sexist because it possibly implies that cooking is only for women and only for mothers to do cooking, right? And this is not uniquely a Japanese problem, of course, but there is much, in my opinion, there is still, if we were to compare it to the States, for example, it seems to be there's much more of a problem with kind of equalizing the genders, as far as, for example, right, a husband doing as much work at home as a wife, right? That of course remains the case in the States. I'm not saying it's not, but it continues to be a much greater imbalance, I think, generally speaking, in Japan versus the US, I think. I'd love to, the fact that young people in Japan started doing kind of work, awareness is important. Yeah, I think it's really great. Of course, I think, right, you can throw a stone and hit somebody who is posting on Twitter about how Japanese people don't care about politics and don't care about social issues, and clearly this is an example of that not being true, or increasingly being untrue. I think it's a really, really great thing. I miss Wegmans though. Yeah, man. We went to Wegmans once last year when I went home to visit for Christmas, and it was like, if there was anything that would make me want to move back to the States, it would be Wegmans, probably. Of course, my family, but who cares about them? But Wegmans, right? And it was great at Wegmans to show my then, at that time, my fiance, the selection of sushi, right? Because there's like the big sushi bar when you go to a Wegmans. And her looking at it and being like, this is sushi, right? And it's like the shit that has like some strange orange, like spicy sauce, like poured over the top of it, that kind of thing. And I remember her asking like, why is the nori on the inside, the seaweed on the inside, that kind of thing. We live next to a quickie. Oh dear. Howdy, sir. Off topic, but long time fan, great way. White-san, hello. Thank you for joining. Glad to see you. I see. Wegmans. Okay, so Wegmans, for my like East Coast, like upstate New York, Western New York kind of people, it's a supermarket, but it's very sort of like high quality. It's not terribly expensive. It's not like Trader Joe's or that kind of thing, but it's just really good, like local supermarket chain that started in, I think, like Canandaigua, New York, if anybody gives a shit. It's kind of close to Rochester, kind of close to Buffalo, to give you some really vague idea. But yeah, it's great. And I think there's a couple more in different places around the country, but generally it is a Western upstate New York kind of thing. Happy New Year. I don't usually watch live, but listen to the playback. Great videos, thanks. Hey, Stinkmeister, that is a great name, by the way. Thank you for checking out the pre-recorded videos. I'm glad you could join this live one. It's great. There's a lot more people here this morning. I suppose it's probably a function of maybe the time, but I'm sure because of the holiday season, you guys have some free time. So I appreciate you spending it with me here. To get back to the story, for those of you just joining us, we're talking about a petition for Family Mart to change the name of its Mother's Kitchen, Mother's Cafeteria line of food, Okasan Shokudo, to something that is more appropriate for the times, basically, right? To change it to a name that doesn't imply that only women should cook, that only mothers cook, that kind of thing. I of course I am in support of this petition now. It seems ちょっと待ってな. Let's see. There's a number here written. So far it has over 2,200 people as of the 28th of December. So hopefully there are more. I'm gonna sign myself because I don't see why not, right? It doesn't take a lot of work to change something like that, and you could wonder like how much is changing a name like that going to affect anything, but I think every little bit moves the needle forward a little bit, right? So moves the needle forward. I'm mixing metaphors, but anyway. I do want to open it up to you guys. In your family, who does the cooking, or who did the cooking, I suppose, right? If you're married, like, and you're a lady, do you do the cooking? Does your partner do the cooking? And not just in sort of traditional partnerships, that whatever the case may be. Who does the cooking? When you were growing up, who did the cooking? In my case, I think maybe one of the reasons that I have kind of that I have the take I do on this is that my mother's cooking is terrible. She's not gonna watch this, so it's okay, but just in case she does, let's add a little bit of a disclaimer by saying that your boxed Kraft mac and cheese was always delicious. You somehow learned a recipe for chicken fettuccine Alfredo, which is amazing, and I have dreams about it sometimes. And what else? What else, Mother, did you do that was good? You boiled some great freaking hot dogs. Anyway, there's some things you did okay, right, is what I'm saying. The Alfredo was amazing. But yeah, my dad did all the cooking when I was growing up, and my dad is a pretty good cook, although probably solely responsible for my being like a, hey, Stinkmeister, don't shit on my mother's boiled hot dogs, all right? But yeah, my father's cooking is probably responsible for my being a balloon when I was like 18. I can't comment on my second balloon period when I was like 24, 25, but anyway, that first one, all on you, Father. But yeah, my dad did all the cooking, and even now, probably in my situation, I do most of the cooking, because usually I enjoy it, actually. I think it's really kind of a bit of a stress relief. And also that way I don't have to bitch at anybody if they cook something I don't like, not that I would bitch anyway, but I can just, I can craft my own menu basically, and then people have to put up with it, so. I did the cooking, Mom did growing up. Yeah. God, I don't know if I ever ate any of your mom's cooking. By the way, I'm not just saying that to random people. There's somebody in the comment who is a friend. It's been a long time friend, since I was like 14, I suppose. So that's why I'm saying I've never eaten her mother's cooking. I'm not just being some creep, at least not purposely. Wikipedia, I know you're something of an accomplished cook. I've never eaten your cooking. Getting a cold reception to my saying it requires skill to boil hot dogs. But Wikipedia, I've seen your Instagram, and of course you are doing like vegetarian and that kind of stuff, right? And that kind of stuff. But it always looks really, really delicious and inspires me to take meat even just a little bit more out of my diet. So, but I don't know. What do you guys think about this? I know. Of course, like, I think in some ways people have a little bit of a fatigue, internationally speaking, to this kind of campaign, because it seems, right, like every day, right, it seems like you have a new campaign wanting to change the name of something, or wanting to change some little thing to make things a little bit more equal, and it seems like people have a little bit of fatigue for these sort of social justice, social equality kind of things. Are you feeling fatigued? Do you think it's a good idea? Do you think even if they change it, nothing will change, so it's pointless? Like, I don't know. Hit me with your ideas. I'm pro this kind of thing, so not that great at cooking, and don't enjoy it that often. If I get takeout without guilt or draining my bank out for every meal, I would. Yeah. Yeah, for sure, for sure. I admit too, like, I think recently, just because trying to get the new business going and trying to get the get moved into the new house and everything like that, also trying to cook is just actually incredibly stressful. So me too. Recently, it's just been as much as possible going to the convenience store or now it's really great because despite the fact this is a small city, a smaller city than where my apartment is, within walking distance from my house is a Starbucks at a really big park and a really big library that it's attached to, kind of around the Starbucks. There's a Mr. Donuts. Mr. Donuts, by the way, it was originally an American chain, started in Boston, but now it's like a big Japanese, kind of like Dunkin' Donuts, that kind of thing. Tim Hortons. Tim Hortons, my baby. What else? McDonald's, there's Kaiten Sushi, right? The conveyor belt sushi. There is a Texas Hand Pizza, which is okay. It's not Domino's, which it's so weird to be like, oh man, Domino's is the one, right? Because like my hometown pizza, Pizza Land, Leroy, New York, love forever. Although I was a Pontillos fan myself, but anyway. Yeah, anyway, suffice it to say that there's a shit ton of new restaurants that are really close that are gonna be like, yeah, challenge, right? Vegan power. Yeah, how does I suppose if you raise your kids vegan, right, it's a little bit easier than sort of later in life trying to change them over, right? Have you been vegan the entire time they've been alive? Is that a weird way to phrase that? Tim Hortons is poo. All right, well, tell me, Emily, in the land of Canada, what is the superior option to Tim Hortons? One thing I miss, I suppose, for you Canadian folk in the comments is when I was writing in-house for a marketing company in Rochester, all is poo. All is poo. When I was writing in-house for this company in Rochester, before they sort of switched and let us do telework full time. Telework? That's Japanese English, isn't it? What do you call it? Anyway, work from home, right? Telecommute. We would, on our lunch breaks, we would walk over to like a little park area, and park there was a poutine food truck. And then we would walk over to Tim Hortons, so you get the full Canadian experience, right? Because God knows you don't have any other delicious things. That's not true. I'm sorry I said it. I felt bad saying it because, say Montreal, love Montreal. I can't take double, too sugary. Yeah, but don't force them to eat tofu. Sure. You work from home, thank you. That's the thing I was looking for. This is the thing, right, is like, the degradation of my natural American English. Although, let's be honest, American English, right? Anyway. This coffee's terrible. Yeah, but so it's all good, right? It's all good, but hey people, how about you respond to the question that I asked you, you know? I mean, I appreciate this fun, like, personal conversations we're having here, but answer the damn question. I'm kidding, of course, 90% kidding. Dunkin' is better than Tim Hortons. Really? I don't know. Yeah. What was the question, Sensei? The question, student, was... What was the question? The question was, what do you think about this campaign to change the Okasan Shokudo name, the mother's kitchen, the mother's cooking, the mother's cafeteria product name line to something more to something less anachronistic, something that's more fitting with the times, like home cooking or, right, that kind of thing. That was the question. Yeah, right, I think it's fine, and it's not such a big switch to call it home cooking, that kind of thing. But I'm thinking, right, like, something like that would be cool, I guess. I suppose, though, maybe from a business standpoint, or at least from a marketing standpoint, that maybe home cooking doesn't have the same punch, or how can I say, like, name recognition is including like the word mother does. But yeah, fine, it's just a superficial change. It won't move the dial for gender roles. Yeah, I think probably that's a valid criticism to say that, you know, I don't know how much it'll change anything, but my feeling is that this is kind of a weird place to go to, I suppose, but it's sort of like my same feeling about religion sometimes. Is like, I personally don't believe in, like, I'm not a religious person. I don't follow that, but it seems, right, like sometimes it seems a good idea to follow some religious precepts, because just in case there is some kind of judgment system at the end of all this life business, that it's a good idea to be a good person, just in case somebody is going to judge you, right? Of course, that's not the only reason to be good. You should be good just to be good, but why do we go down this weird, like, philosophical rabbit hole? I don't know, but what I'm saying is that even if, for example, you don't believe that changing a name will do anything for gender equality, right? Just on the very off chance that it will, it seems that we should do everything that we can, right? Even if there's no effect, if there's even a 1% chance that it will have a positive effect, then it seems to be the better option. So anyway, the fact that I just went down that weird, like, tangential philosophical rabbit hole signals to me that we should start wrapping this up, I think. So I want to thank everybody for joining. Here it is the last day of 2020. And so, of course, with that, as much as I don't really believe in, like, New Year's resolutions and sort of timing when you're going to make a change, yeah, I'm looking forward to the next year. There's a lot ahead as far as starting a business, as far as making this my home and that kind of thing. But also for YouTube, I want to get this to 2,000 subscribers this year, in 2021. Get us to 2,000 subscribers. On Patreon, I want to get to maybe like 10 supporters, that kind of thing. So those are my content creation goals, I suppose, for next year. I think they should focus their energy on getting more women in government. Yeah, I mean, that's it, right? Yeah, management, just women in more roles of power. I think, Waito-san, I think maybe one of the things that will come from Yuriko Koike, right, is now the mayor of Tokyo. And I think because she's been so front and center, particularly during, like, the COVID pandemic situation, I hope that she will inspire some little girls who see her on TV all the time and be like, oh, hey, I can do that. And maybe, so of course, the thing with social problems, social injustice and that kind of thing is it's not just something that can change overnight. It has to be, it's sort of, there's a very long refresh rate for that kind of thing, right? So maybe in 10 years or 20 years, we'll kind of see the effect of people like her and, God, what the fuck is her name? There's another really famous politician who just goes by her first name. I wish I could remember. Something. But hopefully it won't take another couple of decades to make that change. Your lives are too short. It's true. Do you not like having those tangents? I mean, I think they're fine. I think they make conversation more colorful to have tangents like that, but as far as from a putting up a video perspective, right, and hoping people will be able to follow it and enjoy it, it's not such a good thing to have so many tangents, I think. But also we're on a live stream, so who gives a shit, really? But yeah, guys, so I suppose now, trying to wrap things up. If there are any final questions, comments, concerns that I can ameliorate, please put them in the comments. I'll get to them now, but before we kind of finish up, and then we'll be sort of off as I wish you a happy new year. it starts with parents too. So many parents still unconscious bias. Yeah. I think trying to think about having my own children here in the next year or so. Trying to think about what I can do to not unconsciously give my children those sort of biases, right? Like allowing them to make their own choices. One thing that I've been trying to do just with my students, right, is I can remember just a couple of years ago, like how much shit a little boy would get when he chose a pink crayon to color something, or when he chose a pink piece of paper to make a craft in class. And you know, from both the boys and the girls, like, aren't you? It would say literally in Japanese, aren't you a boy? 男じゃないの? みたいな, that kind of thing. And recently, it's been a very recent change, being like, okay, well, the kid chose pink, like it's cool, right? Like that kind of thing. Just being like, not giving a shit about stuff like that just doesn't matter. So yeah, I agree entirely. It's up to parents. It's also up to teachers. That's a good point, Clank. On yeah. If they don't want the rambling, they shouldn't watch the full size videos, for sure. Yeah. Thank you, Stinkmeister. Thank you, Clank. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I didn't do the best job this year getting out content, but I feel a spark. I think now that I've gotten everything figured out with my home here, my business, like I feel really inspired, because this room is entirely just my room. It's not attached to my bedroom. It's not the living room. This is just, there's gonna be a space. I guess I can show you guys a little bit, as much as I can, but over here, there's going to be like an L-shaped standing desk that I can actually work at. And then over this side will be a long desk, which will just be for like crafting and that kind of thing. And then over here will be like bookshelves and that kind of thing. But this will be entirely a workspace, and it's great. It's been really great for motivation, knowing that I'm gonna have a dedicated space where I can just go shut the door and do it. So I'm hoping to have more interesting things for you in greater quantity, and a higher quality for sure in the coming year. But let's do and not say, right? So anyway, thank you everyone for joining. It was really nice to have so many of you commenting today. I will try to have these live streams. I want to make them a weekly thing at a time when more of you can join on a regular basis. But keep an eye out on Twitter, and also please check out my Patreon, which there are links to in the description down below. There's now a $1 tier there, so anything you can do, I'd really appreciate it. I hope you guys have a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, good holidays in general. I hope you and your family are healthy and happy, and have a very happy New Year. Thank you for everything. Bye.